Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, babies in their diapers, welcome to the Tiberius Show with your host, Tiberius Boy!
That's me, Tiberius!
Welcome to the Tiberius Show today, and I'm your host, Tiberius Boy! And as always, we're looking at various jobs and how they affect the world around us. Today's is going to be very interesting. We're going to talk to someone that is a shaman. Do you have any idea what a shaman does? Well, neither do I. Let's find out. Let me introduce our next guest, the one, the only, the amazing Dale Allen-Rowse!
Woo! Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here.
No problem, and thank you for being on the show. Okay, so
Happy to
you
be
are a
here.
shaman. For my listeners that have no idea what a shaman is, can you explain it?
Sure. The actual definition of a shaman is a doctor of the soul. But that really calls into, question then, what is the soul? Where is the soul found? Because that's the thing that the shaman will come in and try and fix.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so the only time I've ever heard of a shaman was in the World of Warcraft. I mean, magic is done and people are healed. Why are shamans always listed as healers?
Yeah, so again, going back to the true definition of a shaman is the doctor of the soul. And so we address anything that really looks like energy work. We address anything that has to deal with you and your surroundings. And shamanism really is an expression of yourself. It's an expression of your environment. It's the understanding what the indigenous people knew and understood and the information that they conducted their lives by.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so when did you realize that you wanted to be a shaman? I mean, how did you get started?
That's an interesting question because I actually found shamanism through writing my books. I have an interesting background in that I was raised in Vancouver, British Columbia in a normal neighborhood, but my cousins were raised on a reservation with my uncle who was a full-blood First Nations Indigenous Canadian person. And so I was really introduced to the concepts of Indigenous faiths as a child because I was watching my cousins be raised with these ideas and these concepts. And so it really was interesting to me. So when I started to write my books, it was my books that kept asking me to explore the topic. And while I knew just a tiny little bit, it was really super fascinating to me. And it was leaning into that experience of almost childhood wonder and the discovery of what they were learning as I was a child. And through the process of writing about it, it just became more and more interesting to me to the point where I started to go and study it.
Mm-hmm. So what's the coolest part about being a shaman?
Honestly, it's learning the conduit of information that Indigenous people have and use with their environment that we no longer use. There's an entire channel of information that we can get information from that is spoken by the earth and our surroundings. But it requires a really still sense within yourself, right? It's like, if I was to describe what shamanism is, I would say, have you ever walked into a room and found that it was kind of creepy? And you're like, ooh, something's gone on in here that I don't feel right about. It just doesn't feel, good. There's something creepy about this place.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that sense that you're getting right there, that information that something is off in your environment, that's shamanism. And it's developing that sense of knowing of what you're getting from your environment that we learn to chase and develop into a real practice.
Mm-hmm. So when did you perform your first healing and on who? Was it an attorney that could not see what they spoke or did with their client?
So not exactly, because I actually went to school for shamanism and I studied it in kind of an academic setting. And so the first time I really started to practice myself was on the other students. And that was probably the safest way to go, right? You don't want to start going out and start practicing healings on others. And so it was even within the classroom that we started to kind of develop our own personal sense. And what I loved about the school that I went to for shamanism is that they really introduced you to the entire buffet of everything that you can study, everything from ancient songs and drums to animal tracking. Did you know animal tracking is a part of shamanism? And it's a real spiritual practice that some people get into, in terms of, again, what they're doing is they're gaining information from their environment, from the world, right? And using that information to either track animals or talk with plants, or to have other type of healing experiences that you can learn from.
Mm-hmm. So did you say talk with plants?
Oh yeah. There's an entire set. And again, but this is the channel of information that we as Westerners don't tap into, that indigenous people did. They very much communicate with the earth and with, the plants and everything around them. I heard a really great story that when there was a wildfire that was happening, they brought in all these shamans to come in and stop the wildfire, because the shaman has the ability to control not only what's within themselves, but by extension, the environment, around them. It's really so cool once you start to really watch these people and the way that they function and interact in the world. It's just so different than the way that, we as white people do.
Mm-hmm. So do the plants talk back?
Very much so. So some people just have an innate ability to get into that stream of information. I don't have that gift, but I have seen it in others, and people who deal in plant medicine very much communicate with the plants as and there's even, a way that they harvest plants and things for a more healing outcome. It's just a really interesting study to watch people, navigate the world along a line of a different sense of communication than what we normally do.
Mm-hmm. So is being a shaman a good business to be in?
Sure. I mean, it's very much a healing modality, but what I love about it as well is that it really teaches you to search yourself, right? Because in core shamanism, you're really taught, like, what you have internally is what you have to give to the world. And so we're constantly searching ourselves for what's off and what is wrong within us that's changing our environment.
But you can make a living, right? Or do you have to do a day job?
Oh, it's anything like being a massage therapist, say. It depends on your level of clientele. I myself am still very much a student of shamanism, right? So I don't have a big clientele, and I'm still very much practicing in order to work my way towards being a shaman. Like, if you're still a student, you're just a shamanic practitioner. Like, those are the entry level shamans, right? The shamanic practitioners, everyone who's still learning and working their way up and studying under a shaman to eventually get there. But that takes, decades.
Yeah. So can anyone be a shaman? Like, do you have to travel to a temple and climb 1,000 stairs or something?
Sometimes, yes.
Well, in your opinion, what's the hardest part about this job?
Doing the taxes. No. Honestly, sometimes we come across things. There's such things as energetic attachments that are kind of maybe not working towards someone's highest and best interest. And so we have to go in and remove unwanted energies, or kind of bring people into alignment. And sometimes some of that energetic ick can kind of get on you. So you're just always in a constant state of trying to cleanse yourself while healing others. It's just a process.
Mm-hmm. So is there a difference between an energy healer or Rocky and a shaman? Well, can you give me an example?
Sure. So in Reiki, they work with a very singular expression of energy, which is the Reiki healing, right? And so they direct that one source, right, throughout the body for healing. And so that's kind of what Reiki is. Whereas in shamanism, it's more of a spiritual practice. And again, everybody has innate abilities of shamanism. I found my personal gift was in channeling information from beyond me by way of authoring books. And I say that because the books that I write Like I'm learning from them as the words come out on the page. It's almost like my keyboard's a Ouija board, right? And I'm just typing away in terms
Yeah.
of what my body wants to do. But then as it's coming out on the page, like I'm learning from this information. And it's been such an interesting process to trust that this nonsense that my keyboard is typing out is actually teaching me, and to allow that to be true. But I, of course, always take my work, and I have an editor who has their doctorate in shamanism, and I get him to double check my work and make sure that, it isn't just nonsense, but it is in fact like
Yeah.
core shamanism.
Okay. So if shaman heals things, well, then what kinds of things do heal? Headaches, injuries, and pain?
Yeah, again, because we're the doctors of the soul, we really deal in energy work where the soul lives. So if you're off or if you're not feeling yourself, we'll go in and we'll look for, again, those energetic attachments that maybe you've picked up over time, or that maybe somebody has inadvertently kind of cursed you by saying something to you, and you have that energetic ick like kind of attached to you. And so it's always going through and, cleaning the body and making sure that you energetically are in flow. It's kind of like, how they use all those little needles in acupuncture to line up the energy within your body.
Mm-hmm.
We essentially are doing the same thing, but without needles.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, can you explain a little bit more? I'm a kid, remember?
Sure. So, the energy work is really the expression of your emotions, right? The energy of you being happy is easy to see. The energy of you being stressed is easy to see. And we view all of that as energy that's flowing throughout the body. What happens is, say somebody dies and somebody can't get beyond the energy of grief, right? That's where we would come in and help them remove any blockage that they have, so that their energy can start to flow in abundance again, rather than being stuck in grief.
Mm-hmm. Well, does it take a lot of training to be a shaman?
It does actually, at least if you're going to do formal training. I mean, most people should anticipate studying for 10 years before they get anywhere near even an apprenticeship under a shaman. Like, you have to really know the work, you have to know the energy channels, you have to know, the language, and you have to really know your stuff and your innate abilities to do this work.
Mm-hmm. Well, do you perform your healing in person, or can it be done remotely, like on Zoom?
Great question. So it's better, obviously, if it's in person, because you can actually really feel the energy field of the person as you're kind of working with them. But certainly we have done it on Zoom. I've done a lot of my training via Zoom. So it can go both ways, but obviously in person is slightly better.
Mm-hmm. What time do you remember to be one of the most rewarding?
Oh gosh, probably there was this one time where we were kind of exploring the world of psychopomp, which is the world between death and life. And there was this woman who asked me to retrieve information from a deceased relative. It was her father. And so, I mean, I was still very much new to the work, and I was just kind of exploring that channel of how to find her father. And as I was going through that, I started to gain more clarity. And then it was like, whoa, all of a sudden, like his presence was there. And he was asking me to say things to her that I was telling her that really changed her life. And I mean, it's when you make that connection and it all comes together, that is so cool, because you're not communicating with others along the lines that we normally do. And it's in learning these indigenous channels of information that you gain access to whole other worlds. It's so crazy.
Mm-hmm. So, kind of tell me, how does it work? Do you feel something and get into a trance?
Okay, great question. I'm so happy that you asked me that, because in shamanism, we adopt what's called the journeying state. And it's kind of like if you've ever had like a massage or something and you're kind of like half asleep and half awake, it's kind of in that world, right? And so that's one thing we really train on, is finding this mental journeying state so that you can go and journey on ideas, information, things like this, in order to gain new information. In shamanism, we call it being the hollow bone. It's essentially emptying yourself from yourself in order to allow in new information. And so, that's kind of one of the main things we really practice on is adopting that journeying state, which is what you just asked about. That's where we go to get information.
Mm-hmm. Well, can you use your healing powers on a kid?
Oh, for sure. Even on pets. I mean, anybody. Yeah.
Wow. So what's the main goal of a shaman?
Is to really help people flow and to heal. That's the main thing that we work on, is to making sure that people are, vibrationally operating at their highest level that's available to them to bring additional healing into the world.
Mm-hmm. Well, now here seems like a good time to take a quick commercial break. Let's hear a word from our sponsors.
Over 40 years, Lighthouse Central Florida has provided education, independent life skills, and job training to thousands of Central Floridians who live with blindness or any degree of vision loss. Whether it's picking out clothes in the morning or just moving around your community and serving Orange, Seminole, and Osceola counties, contact Lighthouse Central Florida at 407-898-2483 or visit them online at lighthousecfl.org.
And we are back here talking with Dale Allen-Rowse. Dale is a shaman and can help people. So, Dale, can you tell me what's fun about this job? I mean, us kids like to have fun.
Yeah. Well, one great thing is it's mostly outside, and it's mostly having to deal with animals and nature, and it's developing your own personal relationship with your surroundings and your ability to communicate with your world.
Mm-hmm. So, Dale, can you tell me how being a shaman has changed your life?
Oh gosh. Well, it has really opened me up to the truth about myself, right? Because like I told you earlier, like we're very much in tune with what we have internally is what we have to bring into the world, and that's what we have to heal others. And if we ourselves are not, clean and free of ick and ego, then, we won't be able to heal others well. So it's always that process of making sure that we are lifted up and light and have the ability to light up others and to bring in more joy to this world.
Mm-hmm. Well, recently I interviewed a medium. Can a shaman talk to dead people?
Yes. That's the short answer. In fact,
Got it.
there's a lot of shamans who specialize, like I talked about earlier, in the psychopomp realm, who their gift is speaking with the dead or reaching across that aisle to get information from where, our soul goes after it leaves our body. I don't have that particular gift. I've had a few experiences that were really meaningful for me. But again, my particular gift is more in channeling information that I don't know, right, into books.
Okay. So, can it ever be scary when you're doing a healing?
That is a really good question. The main genesis of what you're asking is, does evil exist, right? And evil does not exist in nature. If you go and walk out in our forest, because I live in a forest, and if you go and walk in the forest, evil does not exist there. Do animals kill other animals? Yes. But is that evil? No, it's survival. It's nature, right? And so yes, we sometimes come into scary things because we don't know or understand what it is that we're dealing with. But we always have like our spirit animal or our power animal with us as a guide through those worlds. So we're never in there alone. And we also, especially at my level, I'm still very much a student. And so I always have other apprentices or teachers or shamans around to help guide us through, because it is very, very different than what we normally learn about in our Western world.
Mm-hmm. So, what are the main benefits of being a shaman?
Oh gosh, I think just the enlightenment, the insights into yourself and into your world. It's gaining access to information that really helps you, even in the way that we develop our personal relationship with a spirit guide known as, I'm sure you've heard of spirit animal. Like everybody
Mm-hmm.
talks about, that's my spirit animal. We actually have a real process and ceremony for discovering who your power animal is and then developing a relationship with them as you go through your studies.
Mm-hmm. So, how old do you have to be before you can become a shaman?
Oh, you could do it right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when you were a kid, what did you want to do when you grew up? Did you always know that you were going to be a shaman?
No, actually, it was really a surprise to me. Again, when I started writing my books kept telling me to go explore that relationship of my cousins who were living on the reservation, right? That I found so interesting. And so I didn't set out to do it. It was a bit of a surprise, but when I was growing up, I actually wanted to be a dancer, and I was on Broadway for a while, and I was a backup dancer for Celine Dion, and I did a bunch of really big
Ah.
things, with my life. But then the books came in later, which luckily by then I was too old to dance anyhow.
Well, I read a radio show and podcast that talks about God during my Line Strong segment coming up. So how do you include God's message in your work?
Myself, it's in everything that we do because shamanism is a spiritual practice first and foremost, right? And it's gaining that clarity of who you are, what is the intelligence of the universe, what is the expression of that, and how does that help you? It's in everything that we do. Only we're not necessarily limited to one particular religion. We're really open to speaking and exploring with all spiritual entities, past, present, and future. It's really quite amazing.
Mm-hmm. Now, my dad said that you used to work in ballet. Well, that's awesome. Well, I interviewed a Broadway actor, and I know it's a lot of work. Well, do you have to start ballet as a kid?
It really depends, but probably yes. Boys can start as late as maybe 14 and still have a career, but girls really have to be studying by the time they're 8 and probably at a professional ballet school by the time they're 10, 12, in order to really compete in the world, just because it's so hard and so difficult in order to get that level of training.
Mm-hmm. Well, what's the coolest memory that you've had from your days of ballet?
Uh, so this one time I did a performance where, oh gosh, it was really interesting because Julie Andrews was there and she had come to watch me, and I was doing a gig with Bob Fosse's wife. And at the time, anyhow, so Julie Andrews was there, and I finished the performance, and she came up to me afterwards, and she goes, "You really are very good." And I laughed, and I was like, because there's a line in Cabaret where
Mm-hmm.
that thing gets said to Liza Minnelli, and Liza goes, "Yes, I know, isn't it wonderful?" And so I said that to Julie Andrews. She didn't think it was funny.
Mm-hmm. Well, did you ever get hurt? I know ballet is very physical on the body.
It is, yes. I have many, many scars. Everything from being dropped on my head and like having to be rushed to the hospital for stitches to a broken leg. I've had it all. It is a very tough physical career.
Wow. Well, while working in ballet, did you ever get to work with any famous people?
Yeah, like I mentioned, I was a backup dancer for Celine Dion for many years. I've done shows for other stars and things like this. I was on Broadway with a bunch of famous Broadway people. I was in 7 different ballet companies over 18 years. I mean, I had a pretty big career, but by the time I
Well,
was
mm-hmm. Well, did you ever become a fanboy, or did you treat them like every other normal person?
Great question. So, like when I was with Celine, we were together for so many years, and we would have dinner with her once a week. And so, while originally I was like just this huge starstruck fan, over time she kind of just, it becomes normal, and it's just another person you're hanging out with. And that's when you really learn that famous people are just regular people with a bigger job than you. That's it.
Yeah. Well, why did you retire from ballet and performing?
I just got old.
Okay, well, my dad said that when COVID came, you decided to start writing about shamanism. Well, do you do that a lot with a lot of research, or did you already know it all?
That's a really interesting question. Thank you for asking me that. So, when I first started writing my book, it was when COVID came along, and I always kind of felt like I had a story to tell, right? And I sat down and I started writing the book, and it just started to flow. Now, mind you, I was dancing around the world before I really graduated high school. So, I don't have much of a formal education in that way. And that's why it was so surprising to me when I sat down to write my story that it just started to flow to the point where it was like too much and all the information was just coming to me so fast, and I was writing it down as fast as I could. And it was an experience and a process that I had never, ever experienced before. And so that's when I had to kind of stop and take a look at what that was. It turns out there's an actual spiritual practice called automatic writing. And again, it's part of shamanism where you know, empty yourself from yourself. You become the hollow bone, the conduit of information outside of yourself to allow in the new, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's when I was like, oh, wow, this is super interesting, because again, the information that was coming out on the page, I was learning from. It was like super weird. And I had to start like asking around, like, what is happening here? Because it was so different from anything I had ever experienced before, and learning to trust it, that the information that I was receiving was in fact true, is what started my writing career. And I wrote, you know, like 7 books in my first year, just because of this process of unearthing what's just naturally coming to me.
Mm-hmm. Well, what is that one lesson that you learned by becoming an author?
Oh, becoming an author is very difficult. It's not hard to write books, it's hard to sell books. Because you have to, you know, become really experienced in social media and marketing and everything else. You know, like, it's not so easy to ask somebody to spend, you know, the next month of their life reading your book. Like, somebody
Yeah.
has to be really invested as to have a reason why they want to know your story. And that's the difficult part of being an author.
Mm-hmm. Well, on that note, let's take a quick break to pay some bills.
See Tiberius Smith Law.com.
You can call him at 407-801-2667.
Wait, you are not Chuck.
My dad can help when people get hurt. He loves to help people.
If you are ever injured at work or in a car accident, you should call my friend Chuck.
You can call him at 407-801-2667.
That website again is cwsmithlaw.com.
Offices, Orlando.
Does it actually have that much W's?
And we are back here with Dale Allen-Rowse. Dale has an amazing career in ballet and is now a shaman and author. Let's do this. So, what is the most misunderstood part about your job?
Well, that's a great question. I think that a lot of people don't understand what shamanism is. Like, they've heard the word, but they don't actually know what it is. And they're like, what is that, voodoo? Right? And so it's breaking down those stereotypes to really explain that what it is energy, it's love, it's expression of self, it's interaction, it's community. It is, you know, just energy work in terms of emotions at our deepest core, and how that affects not only us, but our surroundings and our planet.
Mm-hmm. Well, if you could go back 10 years and tell yourself something, what would it be?
Oh, I would probably encourage myself to start studying shamanism earlier. I so enjoy the practice because it liberates you from any sense of good and bad, or, you know, right and wrong, or anything like that. It really encourages you to live in the moment, in the world, in the way that it is, without judgment.
Mm-hmm. Well, what was the biggest mistake you ever made, and how did it change you as a person?
The biggest mistake I ever made with shamanism? Well,
Like,
gosh.
ever made?
Ever made? Let's see. Well, I never dropped Celine, so that was a good thing. That was the biggest mistake I ever made was probably a financial mistake, and it really taught me how to, you know, like, take your lumps and just keep moving, and don't pay any attention to the mistake, right? Seeing the problem is the problem. Seeing the
That's true.
solution is the solution. So if you can live in the solution and not in the problem, you'll get over it much more quickly. And I was so grateful for that mistake.
Yeah. So when you're not working as a shaman, well, what do you do for fun?
Oh gosh, well, we live on a ranch with 5 acres and 4 dogs, and so there's always lots to do in terms of just dealing with the land, and, like, you know, there's always something that you have to deal with, whether it's a broken fence or a dead animal somewhere. There's always something
Yeah.
that you have to deal with.
Well, what's your favorite video game to play, if you do?
Oh gosh, I haven't played video games in I don't know how long. Yeah, I used to be really big into it back when I was your age, but of course that was like when the computer games were just being invented.
Well, what about on your phone?
Oh yeah, well, okay, so I play Candy Crush, of course, who doesn't? And then all those types of games, but that's about it.
Okay, well, what's your favorite book to read?
My favorite book to read. Oh, I'm reading this super interesting one called The Return of the Bird Tribes, which is about shamanism. And it's actually the way that the shamanic visionaries saw kind of like the end of times, but they didn't see angels. They saw what they called bird tribes, these people who live in the sky. And so it's really interesting learning about their visions for kind of like the biblical end of times.
Okay. Now can you tell me that one story? Remember, this is a kid's show. But the one story, well, that you're not supposed to tell me about. Come on, you can tell me.
That I'm not supposed to tell you about. Okay, let's see. So there were a few times where, we were trying to help people like kind of get unstuck, because that's one thing we work with a lot. And it's funny, I actually found a lot of this through my work as a business coach and helping people manifest things in their life, right? It's the same thing, right? In how you live and how you express your world, and how, the words that you use all work in conjunction to where you're going, to not be stuck and to manifest your dreams, right? All the same. And so there were several times where I was helping people try and get unstuck in that manner. And well, I wasn't doing it quite right. And anyhow, the teacher had to talk to me afterwards about how to do it properly, but I didn't know.
Okay, well, that's kind of funny. Well, is there anything else you think my listeners should know about you?
Well, I do hope that they are interested in exploring shamanism a little bit and understanding what it is, because again, a lot of people are like, what is that? I don't understand what that is. It really is just the understanding of the indigenous people and the way that they interact not only with themselves, but with their environment. And so I'm hoping that people will, maybe learn about it through my books or go explore it in other ways, because it's such a beautiful practice. It's just all about love. And it's about these indigenous people who don't even have a sense of low dense vibration and ego and ick. And when you're with these people who conduct themselves from such a high vibration place only, right? It's a real game changer to be with these powerful medicine people who only access the high vibration of life and never get down into the low, gross stuff.
Well, do you have a Facebook or website for my listeners to follow you?
I sure do. So all my social media is at Dale Allen-Rowse. And then, of course, I have daleallenrowse.com, which is my website where you can also find my books and things like this. I also have an Amazon author page where you can find all my books. If you just type my name into Amazon, my books will come.
Well, what is that one question that you think I forgot to ask you?
Okay, the one question you forgot to ask me. I think how shamanism is really a practice. It's not a religion. And that's the one thing I want to get really clear. There is no religion of shamanism. It's a practice, and everybody has the opportunity to practice it in their own way. And for them, if that's, going out and hugging trees and speaking to plants or whatever it is that they do, or if they want to go and learn about the ancient songs and drums and rattles and things like that, it's just such a beautiful expression of humanity. And so I just really hope that people can gain that from this conversation.
Well, thank you so much, Dale, for being my special guest. Can you stick around for Math Corners?
Absolutely.
Tiberius' favorite subject, it's Math Corners!
And thank you, Dale, for helping me with Math Corners. This week, we're gonna do some more multi-step word problems. My dad is always good at finding new problems for me to solve. And today, we're gonna talk about wheels. Well, little Tommy loves wheels, and he really likes different kinds of them. So he counts them all the time. Well, one day, he was at a parking garage, and he decided to count all the wheels he could find. He found 20 cars in the garage, and 10 motorcycles, and 9 bicycles. So how many wheels did he count in the parking garage? Well, first is a real problem because we do know that some kids do like to count things, but I think counting things that can move easily does make it harder. So, to solve this issue, you first have to figure out how many wheels per type of vehicle. So, cars use 4 wheels, and motorcycles use 2 wheels, and bicycles use 2 wheels. Okay, so that's cool. We can add the 10 motorcycles and 9 bicycles to get 19 two-wheeled vehicles. Now we can work on multiplication. So 19 two-wheeled vehicles times 2 is 38, and 20 four-wheeled vehicles times 4 is 80. So you just add the 38 and the 80, and then you get 118 total wheels.
Yes.
So Dale, did you ever count random items when you were a kid?
I used to count my steps all the time. I don't know if that was weird, but like I would want to know how many steps it took me to get from, our car to the door. Or, I would always do that.
Well, my teacher said that I would use math every day. How do you use math in your work?
Again, doing taxes. No, but it's funny because shamanism is very right-brained, whereas numbers and math is very left-brained. So they're a little bit divergent in terms of like what area of the brain we're at.
Well, thank you so much, Dale, for your help with Math Corners.
You bet.
The Tiberius Show would like to thank one of their dedicated sponsors, Custom Designs Orlando. These guys are on Mills Avenue and do all sorts of stuff, ranging from photo ID badges, engraved signs, custom braille ADA signs, vinyl lettering to trophies and awards. The cool part about Custom Designs is they can ship products all over the United States. You can reach them at 407-898-0373 and tell them that
Tiberius
sent you.
And now it's time for the Heart of a Lion. As you know, we talk about the qualities of living by the heart of a lion, which stands for leadership, integrity, obedience, and nobility. This week, we're going to talk about integrity. For me, I think integrity is doing what is right even when no one else is looking. The qualities of integrity is honesty, sincerity, truthfulness, and fairness. So this week, I was supposed to read a book when I was over with my mom. I got to go bowling and practice a lot of bowling. Well, I completely forgot about the reading at all, so I had fun with my friends, and 2 days later when I went back to my dad, he asked me how my reading was. He wanted to know if I was enjoying the book. This was not good. I told him that I forgot to read and even forgot to bring the book back, so I told my dad that I was going to be sure to read that night. This is being honest and truthful, and even though I know I may have made him upset, I did not do the reading, though. So, Dale, did you see or use integrity at all this week?
Oh, yeah. Integrity is really big. That's the one key thing that I always make sure that I function from a place of, right? Because without integrity in your business, in your word, in everything that you do, like you have nothing.
Yeah. Well, of all of the Heart of a Lion virtues, which is the one that you see the most?
Honestly, probably integrity. I don't think we give enough credit to people for having enough personal integrity. I think most Americans function from a place of true integrity. And we get caught up on labels and we get caught up on this person does this or this person believes that or whatever else. No, we need to drop all of that and come together as Americans and have compassion and love for one another and trust that even if they're doing something that you don't understand, that they are still a good person and are probably functioning from the highest place that they can.
But we should always try and be lion strong in everything we do, shouldn't we?
That's right.
And that's our show, folks. I want to thank the one, the only, the amazing Dale Allen-Rowse for being on my show.
Thank you so much for having me.
It has been so much fun talking with you today. I think we learned a lot about a shaman and even some stuff about ballet. Well, do you mind giving your social media and website again?
Sure. So if you want to find me anywhere on social media, it's always at Dale Allen-Rowse or my website, daleallenrowse.com.
And also, you can find me on Facebook and Instagram at The Tiberius Show. And I would like to thank WWPR 1490 AM, KINT 98, Soul Radio 24/7, Easy Way TV, and all the other stations that air my show. And please be sure to visit The Tiberius Show on YouTube and hit that subscribe button. Dale, are you subscribed yet?
Oh, click, click. I am now.
Oh, and be sure to leave a comment and tell me what you think of my latest episode. Also, be sure to join us next week on The Tiberius Show with your host, Tiberius Boy. That's a wrap.